This new reality of pre-sale condos in 2026 will change Surrey real estate forever. The buyers used to believe that buying pre-sale condos was a fairly safe investment, especially buying pre-sale condos for 5 years in advance. By the time the building would complete construction, the belief was that the condo is going to be worth a little bit more or at very least remain the same in price. However, we are starting to see articles after article of the pre-sale condos actually being worth less now since 2026 than when they were purchased at the pre-sale stage back in 2021 and 2022. So what's going on and how will this affect Surrey's real estate in the short term as well as the long-term perspectives? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. If you stay till the end of the video, I put together a report of the best 5 picked neighborhoods people choose to live in Surrey in 2026 for you to download for free. In 2021 and 2022, thousands of buyers bought pre-sale condos with the belief that that's going to be a good investment for the future. They signed contracts and they also, most of the time, gave non-refundable deposits on those units. But fast forward to 2025 and 2026, a lot of those buildings are getting completed, so buyers are applying for mortgage on those units. And to their surprise, the units are actually worth less than what they were originally purchasing those units for in 2021 and 2022. According to this article from Vancouver Sun, experts are saying that nearly half of the appraisals are coming in below the original purchase price. My name is Sibo, a local realtor working in North Surrey. I help first-time home buyers find their dream homes. To put it into hard numbers, let's say you purchase a condo for $600,000. However, right now, the bank say, hey, this condo is actually worth about $500,000. So there is about $100,000 gap between how much you promised to pay for this condo to the developer and how much the bank thinks the condo is worth right now. And this $100,000 gap has to come from somewhere, usually from the buyers themselves in cash payment. This example with the $100,000 gap is admittedly overly simplistic. The situation is a little bit better for the buyers than that because in reality, usually they have already put down 20% deposit. That's how much most of the developers were asking back in 2021 and 2022, which means right now, they do have a little bit more room to play around with. Let's say when they are applying for a mortgage instead of getting the 80% of the purchase value in mortgage because they already put down 20%. Now the 20% becomes, let's say, 10% and 90% becomes mortgage. So at the end of the day, they are still losing out, but most of the time, it's not like people have to go out and borrow another $100,000 or more cash to close on the property. And I say most of the time because there are instances where that is actually the case, especially for the development that we're asking for 5 to 10% deposit. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which way you look at it, not many developers are in that situation. Most of them are around 20%. So people can still close on them if they qualify for a mortgage. However, from day one, they are sort of underwater right away, and unfortunately for lots of these buyers, the situation is getting even worse. I hate to be a bearer of the bad news, but we are sort of in a bit of cycle right now. Right now, the expectation is that we're going to see a lot more condos, new pre-sale condos come to the market at the end of 2026. Because the current absorption rates are not high enough to clear out the existing inventory as more inventory comes to the market. And why is that a bad news? For lots of those pre-sale people, they're not being completed. Well, that's because now there is a little bit of race to the bottom. What I see happening with a lot of developers as well as people have purchased these units, they're trying to get rid of them. At some point, they were thinking to hold on to these units until it eventually sells. However, there is a limit to how long you can hold on to the unit before you start losing too much money. And at some point, you just sort of have to sell. Unfortunately, right now, a lot of developers and lots of investors, a lot of buyers of the pre-sale units are reaching that point. So they're starting to sort of outprice each other in order to get rid of those units. And that affects not only people who are trying to sell their units, and also people who are planning to buy their units to live in. Because the way these pre-sales are, they're done based on recent sales. Now we see units after units selling for lower and lower price, which means that each time there is a brand new completion, the pre-sales are looking at the newest statistics at the newest lowest units sold, and that's what they are basing their value on. So what's causing all of these? Well, there are several factors to play. Number one, interest rate. And you might say, Sibo, at the moment, interest rates are fairly low, and the expectation is that interest rates are going to go down even further. However, 2022, 2023, 2024, the interest rates were quite high. And if your unit was completing at that time and you weren't confident in your ability to qualify for a mortgage, you were trying to get rid of your unit. A lot of times you sold at whatever price you could get, which set a new standard. Units completing after you were sort of judging against the standard. So even though in 2025 and 2026, interest rates are lower, the prices a lot of times are still compared to 2024, where the interest rate were higher and a lot of people were not as confident as in their ability to complete. Which brings us to second thing that happened. Because of high interest rates, we lost lots of investors looking to get into the market. Now the loss of investors were partially due to higher interest rates. It was also partially due to the lack of international students and the sort of cap on immigration numbers. The rents started to drop quite aggressively. Investing into real estate became less attractive. In fact, if you look at the statistics, something like 50% of the units up until 2022 were purchased by investors. That number was around 25% in 2024. And now that number is somewhere around 10%, I believe, for the first quarter of 2025. The investors are just staying away from pre-sale units for time being, which means the pre-sale market lost a large share of buyers that are looking for investments. On top of that, lots of investments who have their units completed, let's say last year or the year before, have decided to list their units for sale because the rent, as I mentioned, are dropping. And that also creates the fact that not only are these brand new units are getting completed and competing with each other, they're also competing with the units that are completed 2 years ago, a year ago or so. Which is all to say that there is a lot of inventory on the market right now. Which brings us to the third reason, at least in my opinion, why a lot of this is happening, and that's overbuilding in certain areas. We see the concentration of these falling value in particular areas where there were some sort of massive building schemes that were primarily focused on investors. We are talking about Surrey Central, we're talking about North Burnaby, Brownwood, and the areas around Lohi Mall near North Road, between Coquitlam and Burnaby. We're talking about the Langley area, where there is a huge concentration of condos that's right now. Unfortunately, not a lot of people are excited about buying. And lots of people watching this video and will say, well, you know what? Those guys get what they deserve. They're trying to speculate on the market and now they got hurt. And I can understand that sentiment. But at the same time, unfortunately, a lot of regular families, first-time home buyers are getting negatively affected as well. As I said, it's not just investors that are losing money and losing value on their homes. Even if people are trying to keep their homes, they just bought their first home, their first 2-bedroom condo, their first 1-bedroom condo, now come completion time, and their places are worth less money, which means it's harder to qualify for a mortgage. And of course, that means higher mortgage payments. On top of that, as I said, you will be sort of underwater for some time. So even selling a condo like this is pretty much not an option until the price go up. And who knows how long it will take for the prices to start picking up. As I just talked about, some particular developments are affected more than others. However, there is also a particular type of properties that are affected more than others, and these are usually luxury properties. From what I see, luxury property markets, our pre-sale luxury property market has been brutal, especially if you look at some areas of downtown Vancouver. A lot of buildings that were completed even last year, the year before. And I'm not even talking about the new pre-sale. Those are even worse. People are losing $300,000, $400,000, or $500,000 in value of their units by the time they complete. A lot of these are actually now for sale at those lower price. Further losses are not only on paper, but they're actually hard losses that people are absorbing in order to sell their units. The other part of the picture that I see right now is a lot of people are signing the units and losing their deposits. They're just leaving the whole deposit on the table. They're absorbing that loss. I have seen a few of these listings. I'm part of a few Facebook assignment groups for realtors, and I'm starting to see some of them pop up, especially the ones have completion in nearby future, probably summer, fall 2026. As that deadline approaches, a lot of people are getting more and more desperate, and they're just trying to get rid of their units. So they're pretty much just leaving their whole 20% deposit on the table. So those are current and immediate effects on the market. However, I'm going to speculate a little bit more and talk about some long-term effects and what I see happening right now. So the first one is the risk that a lot of developers are taking at the moment. What I see happening from a lot of developers at the moment is that they're trying to attract new buyers by offering 5% deposit. And that is a pretty dangerous game to play, because if these people currently walking away from 20% deposits, imagine a 5% deposit, how much easier it would have to walk away from, let's say $50,000 on a $1 million property, as opposite to walking away from $200,000 on the $1 million property. It becomes a whole different ballgame. So either the developer are really confident in their pricing and they believe that the property is at least going to stay priced at the same level when it completes, or even go up in value, or they're just sort of risking it all in order to sell some of those units. And I guess time will tell. But from my standpoint, that is a very risky bet. The second thing that I think is going to be the result of all of these, a lot of people will realize the king is naked, so to say. They're going to see that a lot of these developers are vulnerable, and hey, we don't need to line up outside their pre-sale centers at 5 a.m. in the morning. Yes, there will still be some very attractive developments, but for the most part, I think this sort of situation over new development is over now. And we're entering into the new reality. The reality that was back when I started in real estate, when developer had to actually attract buyers to their new development instead of other way around, where the buyers were trying to sell themselves to the developer. Hey, look at my application, have those sort of lottery in order to buy homes. So at least that way I see it. Right now, that's going to be the new reality moving forward. We are probably going to see developers offering some great incentives, maybe having some great amenities, offering better terms to new buyers. And that's probably going to happen for the nearby future. The next lesson we can learn from all of these is to be proactive, especially if you are one of those buyers, because the sad truth is that most of them will be caught completely off guard. Most people will not know exactly what's going on until it's time to complete. The way these completion usually work, you get a notice from the developer that says something like in 45 or 30 days, we will have completion. Congratulations. So find your lawyer, find your mortgage broker, and let's go. And that's when most people will find out their units now worth way less than what they agreed to pay for them 2 to 3 years ago. It would be a lot better to be sort of more informed, especially if you have a good realtor who can walk you through the process and can stay in touch and let you know that, hey, in 6 months, you are completely on this unit and it looks like it will be underwater. That gives you more time to plan for other options, whether it's to assign the unit, whether it's to borrow money from somewhere else, whether it's to arrange for other financing options, as opposite to only having about 30 days and now last minute, you are scrambling to get everything together. Fortunately for you, you have watched this video, so you know what's going on in the market right now. If you are holding a pre-sale contract completing in the next 6 to 12 months, or if you are first-time home buyers trying to figure out how to navigate this market without getting caught off guard, I know how overwhelming all of these can feel. Every situation is a little different, and you don't have to figure it out all alone or guess what your appraisal might look like at the last minute. That's why I'm offering a free low-key one-on-one strategy section, no sales pitch, no pressure at all, just an honest 30 minutes chat where we can look at your specific building, go over your completion timeline, and check recent market comparisons in your neighborhood and figure out your best next steps together. If you like to map things out early and give yourself some peace of mind, you can grab a time on my calendar and using the link right now in the description below. If you found this is helpful, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel to stay updated what's really happening in Surrey's real estate market. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.